Good. So, many times I wanted to do this presentation on whole class, individual, pair, and group work. Okay. So, concerning this one, this is the the outline of this presentation, so I'll lecture on this. So we're going to have a look at the types of classroom sitting. Okay, and how students can be arranged for their work. And then finally, a few tips about how we can do pair and group work, okay? Because as I told you last time, we need to be, smart about how we organize our students in terms of pairs, in terms of groups, etc. Okay? It's not always a good thing just to assign students to groups. Okay? There are ways, better ways, smarter and better ways to do it. Now, before we go into there, now let's recapitulate about the types of classroom seating we can have in a classroom setting. Okay? There is different classroom seating and in a classroom setting. Yes. So, recapitulate. Seating. Yes, traditional way. Traditional way, so that's what we have in our high schools, middle schools, etc. And then we have the U shape or the horseshoe, okay, shape.
So semicircles.
Semicircles, okay. Yes. So that's fine. So those are the kinds of seating arrangements we can have. So the first one is, of course, the traditional, one, where you can have the students, all of them looking at the whiteboard or the blackboard, and the teacher is in front of them. And then the second one is, this one is the U shape or the horseshoe shape, okay. And finally, the kind of, semicircle, okay, circle shape, okay, or semicircle shape, okay. So these are the different types of classroom sittings we can have, right? And, okay, groups in individual tables. This is also another way of seating we can have, okay? In addition to the three first ones we have seen, so we can have tables and then put groups of students in there. And this is also becoming more and more popular. It's becoming more and more popular, even now if you go to primary schools, private primary schools, you can see that that's the way they arrange the pupils in there, right? So, now the question that arises is that we can shape the classroom setting according to different types, okay, to the different type of intended, okay, activity, okay. So you can have different types of activities. Activities for which is most suitable for is the individual or traditional one, or you can have like using them in a circles or groups, okay. So it depends on the activities. You can have each one of these, right? Now, concerning the way how we can arrange, okay, our students, so we can have whole class, okay, teaching in traditional, okay, traditional seating and traditional ways, okay, so you can have using this whole class teaching, okay, to build class spirit. These are some of the advantages of using this way of arrangement. Whole class teaching helps to build class spirit, having the group working together, etc. It builds the feeling that everyone is involved together. There is a kind of unity going on, okay? It is highly convenient for lecturing. These are the types of activities you can do for this kind of seating or arrangement. It is highly convenient for lecturing, explaining things, and controlling what is going on. Okay, so these are the benefits. So lecturing, explaining, and finally, very useful in terms of classroom management in the sense that it helps you control, okay, what the students are doing. Even it's traditional, but it has got this kind of advantage by comparison to the other types of arrangements. If you have the two students, you know, in groups, you know, the teacher can't be focused, maybe, and therefore it helps them, you know, have, you know, be a bit active and noisy. It is however, less appropriate for communicative speaking activities. Now, these are the drawbacks of this kind of arrangement. So the first are advantages, and how we have drawbacks. And this is a very major, in fact, drawback, because since we are English language teachers, and we are talking about language in here, so we are talking about communication, where we want to teach our students to communicate. So therefore, traditional seating or arrangement is very inconvenient in this regard, in the sense that it doesn't help create appropriate, okay, communicative speaking activities, right? Many students don't like speaking or performing in front of the whole class. What happens is that many times teachers call some students and then to come and perform or give an answer in front of the whole class. You know, the types of students or learners we have, they are different. We can have people who are students or people or learners who are some kind of introvert or shy, etc. So they are kind of shy, okay, in terms of performing and speaking in front of a whole class. So this is a kind of drawback. Now, solo work. Okay, we're going to talk about advantages and kinds of disadvantages. So solo work, means very simply individual work. Okay, individual work. During solo work, the teacher can't or can go around the class helping them one by one. So this is one major advantage of solo work, individual work, in the sense that the teacher is better able to go and monitor students individually and helping them individualizing, you know, personalizing the teaching and learning for the students. Also, in terms of knowing the difficulties the learners can have. So it's very helpful in this regard. Classes are usually quiet when students are working on their own. When you have students working on their own without speaking, having to speak to others. So this is one advantage of this kind of work. Okay. Students can work at their own pace. So, you know, students are different in terms of their abilities. So some students maybe can provide answers quickly, others in between, and others are very slow. Okay, so individual work, solo work, helps to give the students their, the way the best way they can do their answers and they do their learning. Okay. Nonetheless, solo work does not always help to promote class harmony, which is existing in the previous kind of traditional arrangement. Traditional arrangement, we said that it creates a kind of harmony. Everybody are working together, sense of unity going on in the class. Okay, but individual work, you know, is not very helpful in this one. Okay, it doesn't help. Okay, promote class harmony in the sense that you have the students working individually, you know, and they're focusing on themselves. Okay, without knowing what's going on about the others. Okay. Next is, it might be difficult for the teacher to teach the whole class, okay? Especially in our context where we have many students, okay, or crowded classes. I wouldn't call them overcrowded, I could call them crowded classes. So that's the major drawback there. Now for the next one, is, of course, pair work. Okay, pair work sometimes. I'm starting here in terms of disadvantages of pair work. Okay, it tends to be noisy, sometimes even very noisy. Okay, depending on the age of students you have. Some students don't always enjoy pair work. You know, introvert, shy, or don't like to mix with others. They prefer to work with the teacher in groups. Some students, they prefer to have traditional method, okay, or working in groups rather than in pairs, okay. And then, despite the fact that students can get distracted, another disadvantage of pair work, you know, it's students can be involved or can go off task, okay, can be distracted, they can be talking about something else different from their main task, right? Now, advantages, it highly increases the amount of speaking time that each student has. Okay, despite these drawbacks, it has got this main advantage of pair work in the sense that it increases student talking time, right? Of course, you need to have the teacher monitoring in this regard, turning and then asking the students every time they shift from English to go back to English, okay, and avoid native language. It promotes learner autonomy. It promotes learner autonomy because students in the pair are doing the work rather than the teacher. Because usually, you remember yesterday when I was talking with Rahma, who is absent now, and then I said that she wanted to give the impression that she was getting the answers from the students, but she doesn't give enough time for the wait time, this notion of wait time, and therefore she just provides the answer herself. And this one is against learner autonomy, okay? Whereas if you give pair work to students, so the students are building this autonomy and start relying on their own, finding problems and difficulties and trying to solve those problems and difficulties and taking risks and so on. So it's very advantageous in this regard. It is very much sociable for engaging the students, despite the fact that it's noisy and so on. It is sociable. It engages the students. Even the shy, or those who are very shy among them, can be engaged. Okay. And when we're talking about social, we're talking about communication, right? So that's why it increases student talking time, right? It is greatly useful for comparing answers when the students are working together in pairs. So each one is providing his answer, and then there's comparison going on, and of course, improving the learning of the language. For creating practicing dialogues, it's also very helpful, pair work. Okay, so the students have a better context, better situation where they can create dialogues. And for rehearsing dramatic scenes, since we are talking about role plays here, so it's a very good situation that can help them rehearse for role plays and so on. Group work, despite some students who tend to do less work in groups than in a whole class setting. Now again, I'm starting with the disadvantages of this kind of work, in the sense that group work, you can have some students who tend to do less work in group than in whole class setting, especially those who are shy, don't like to be seen in the front, okay? Also, despite some students who don't like group work, okay? And then it can be very noisy, like pair work, maybe even worse, maybe even more. So it can be very noisy. It increases, again, student talking time, individual student talking time, okay? And also it encourages cooperation, okay? It encourages cooperation. It allows students to work on a range of tasks, Okay, it allows students to work on a range of tasks, different types of tasks. Like examples of the tasks you can have for group work. Okay, can you help? Yes?
Tasks in group work.
Yes, in group work, yes. The different types of tasks in group work we can have.
Discussions.
Yes, discussions. Okay, so we have like buzz groups. Okay. Discussion, as you have mentioned. Story, circle, writing. Planning. Story reconstruction. Okay.
Writing dialogues.
Yes, dialogues. Many more, yes.
Project.
Planning.
Preparing a project.
Yes, project work. Yes, Yes, of course. Let me go back to my slide. So we can also have okay, project work. Yes. And the previous one you have mentioned? Dialogues. Okay, yeah.
Problem solving.
Yes. So dialogues and problem solving activities. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. Problem. Okay. Solving activities. Yes, Saida. Contests. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Contests. Can you explain?
For example, students may be divided into groups.
Mm-hmm.
They may divide a certain students contest in which these groups can form.
Yes.
Competition.
Kind of competition. Yes. Kind of competition. So you can have different topics for the competition, right?
Using games.
Yes. Yes. Games, etc. Okay. Thank you.
Sometimes it can be global can be used to prepare for a writing activity.
Yes, that's yes, writing, reconstruction, etc. Now the question that arises from all this is that good teachers should use a variety of different student groupings. So that's one thing you should keep in mind if you want to be, skilled good teacher, rather than a lazy one, just keeping the traditional. Okay, good teachers use them for different tasks. This happens, to all students, to all human beings. You need to give them different things, to kill the boredom, right? And to renovate. Yes. Yes, different learning styles, and also to reconstruct, to renovate the motivation, okay, the energy, okay, because it creates this renewal in energy.
On the first side, a good teacher uses a variety of different student groupings. There are two ways. Sometimes the teacher can let the students choose their own groups so as to feel safer with the people they know for certain purposes. And sometimes the teacher should intentionally not let the students who go together stay again together. It will be better for them at times to
differentiate, to diversify. We're going to come back to the tips for doing a classroom arrangement, and we're going to talk about this, right? So good teachers use them for different tasks, and they need to give good instructions, okay? So because you are doing with some kinds of activities, and you need to be very clear, very precise, very specific about classroom interaction. They need to give clear demos, of course, because it's related to instructions, in order to help them do the tasks. Now, tips for pair and group work. We have the following example. This is one kind of tip, and we're going to see many others. Teachers should decide who should work with whom. Okay, because many times what happens is that the good students always work together, and those who are not very good, so they tend to be stay together, which is not very helpful for the learning. Okay, yes, Isis.
For mixed ability classes, for example, English students will be weaker ones so that they can help.
Yes, helping each other. There are various ways of doing this. Teachers can put students into pairs with those sitting next to them. This is one way, very simple way, especially in our context, where we have the traditional arrangement. So, students or the teachers can put students into pairs with those sitting next to them, in front of them, or behind them, if you have those crowded classes, traditional arrangements. Okay?
This one is very much used.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Work individually or have them in pairs.
In pairs.
It's less time consuming.
Less time consuming.
And it's more suitable for the
Our
classroom.
context, yes. We have 40 students and we have traditional small class, etc. So the best way to go quickly about this and reducing the problems and for classroom management. So this is the way to do it. So into pairs with those sitting next to them, or to change, because talking about the idea of change, we should change students groupings, or in front of them, or behind them. This is the ideal way in traditional classroom settings when chairs are fixed in straight lines, like this, okay? Fixed. They're not fixed in the sense of fixed, but just that's the way you all the time find your classrooms, okay?
Sometimes they are really
Sometimes they are fixed, I know.
Because sometimes the English teacher, because of lack of classrooms, is bound to teach in the classes of science. And
Yes.
the classes of science which
Yeah,
are
yeah,
late.
yes, they're fixed, yes. Okay, I agree with you.
But the other there is space between one and another. You can get one kind of rope.
Yeah, but still not very practical because the chairs you can't move them. Okay, there is space, but you can, and also it sounds like nice environment, but at the same time, in terms of pedagogy and applying these things, it doesn't work. Yes.
You cannot have that other table. And so
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Teachers can tell students to get into pairs and groups and let them choose who they can work with to diversify. This is easy, but it can be chaotic, noisy, etc. It might be difficult for some students to find friends to work with, those shy students. Okay? So that's the one of the difficulties in relation to this giving freedom. Whenever you give freedom, especially in our context, even for the adults, it tends to be, chaotic, extremely chaotic. Let alone if you do it for the pupils and students, teenagers, adolescents. Teachers can tell students who to work with, assign. You work with X, X works with, M works with N, and so on and so forth. They can make sure that they have to move so that they are not always working with the same classmates. So if you assign, and it's your tendency as a teacher, you think it's suitable for your classroom management or whatever reason, so you start just keep this idea of assigning groups or pairs. So what you can do is just try to diversify, the assignment of groups.
Sometimes some students are not comfortable to work with other students.
Yeah. That's a question of introverts, but there is some problems. It happens. Yes, and also they don't, there is no positive electricity going on. Okay, it happens. Sometimes you feel like attracted to some people, but you feel like you're. It happens. Okay, so that even for the children, and especially for the teenagers who are so spontaneous and can't pretend. Okay, so it's.
Especially among girls.
Especially among girls. This is new for me.
Yeah.
You might find more girls who are reluctant to work with some people,
Uh-huh.
and boys are generally open there.
Not
all of them.
Not all of them, yeah.
But generally, you have
So-
more girls that it's not a really general matter.
But that's the feeling you have as a teacher from your experience. That's the feeling you
You
have.
find more tension among girls
Yeah.
than among boys.
Okay. Yes. What do you think? It's true. It's true. So, people who think it's yes, raise your hands among the girls. Yes. Okay.
Because there are more personal problems.
Yes. So that's why maybe they prefer to work with boys, because I have this idea. I know that they usually girls prefer to work with boys, and the opposite is true, of course.
No, what I mean.
Yes.
So it's not that girls don't want to work with girls.
Yes.
But there are problems between girls amongst themselves more than there are between boys.
Yeah. It's part of the nature. Evil nature. Evil is selfish. Anyway, so they work in pairs with the person in front of them. Yes, please. So teachers can have students stand in inner and outer wheels. Inner, outer wheels. They work in pairs with the person in front of them. When the outer or inner wheels moves, so they work with the new person they are standing opposite. Okay, this is one way of assigning the groups indirectly. Okay, we have seen, you remember, examples of doing it using what time do you get up, or terms of city near to London, etc. Teachers might group students according to ability, so that they can give them different tasks. Teachers might also mix students of different abilities so that the stronger students can help the weaker ones, and they can also learn more by doing it. Okay, so when you have weaker working with the strong, so the weak learning from the strong, which is very useful. Teachers might group students by chance. Example, they can have them all stand in a line in order of, for instance, their birthdays or the first letter of their name. Right? First letter of their name. So what's the first letter of their name? And then those who have the same letter, so they work together. So that's the way of assigning groups, in a random way, by chance, okay, or by birthday. Then they can group the first 5, and then the next 5, and then the next 5, okay? Teachers might ask students who, privately in confidence, who they do and don't want to work with. Now, as a teacher, one way of doing it indirectly again. So, in order to get rid of this kind of problem you have mentioned, so you can, private chats with students in discreet way, and whereby you collect that kind of information. Who do you like to work with? Who do you don't like to hate to work with? So that when you have that information, and then you can start assigning. Because it's also helpful when you do it that way, when you assign groups which tends to be like homogeneous in terms of in terms of abilities or whatever. It's very helpful, okay, for the learning. Teachers can draw a sociogram, a diagram with arrows between students who say they can work together for this. When you collect that information, so you use it by note-taking and creating this kind of social diagram, right? And so you know who likes to work with whom, etc. When teachers want students to move, so it is usually less confusing and more efficient if they make them stand first. Don't ask just from the beginning and then go, move. Okay, do the groups. You work in groups. You have to help them be ordered. You have to help them be less okay, chaotic, less noisy. If you just do it that way, yes, you can work together. Then you know what happens. Okay, you remember yesterday when Sophia, you asked them to pick up a piece of paper. Now what happens is there's chaos. Okay, so it is usually less confusing and more efficient if they make them stand first, and you saw that in the movie. Stand first, and then they tell them where to move. Help them move here, move here, move here. So, for example, when you ask the students with birthdays, on the basis of birthdays, so what do? So you have the people having the same birthday. You don't tell them just go and look for your partner who has the same birthday. You can do that, but you help them move. Yes, assign that for them.
There are also softwares which can pick students randomly. One of the softwares is it's called The Hat. It's used by many teachers here in academia. it just writes the names of the students. And then
yes, that's a good procedure.
It's the software which chooses students randomly without any. The Hat. Yes, The Hat. I have it in my computer if you want to. Yeah. Yeah, I use it as
Called the
hat.
Hat, like this?
Yes.
Okay. Software. Okay. Called that. So that's a good one for using technology. Since we're talking about ICT in our program. So the hat. So you just put the numbers, and I think there is another way of doing it, which is very simple, which is numbers or using Excel. Excel, it does this operation as well. You know? Yes, you put the names list, and then you order it in different ways. Order it in different ways. Just not as professionally as this one, but in Excel you put the names, and then you can order the names in different ways. Okay? And that's, for example, what has been done at Universiapolis, In the days of the exam, there is the same list, but then each exam, for example, they have English, they have a new order. And then if they go for management, the same list, another order, and another order. So in order to avoid, cheating, problems, and etc. So the hacks, okay, thank you very much. You can just download it from the net. Okay, so we will take it from you, okay? Thank you for this piece of information. Now that's it. So the references for this small introduction. The practice of English language teaching. Essential teacher knowledge. Both of them by Harmer, Jeremy Harmer. This one is essential teacher knowledge, very basic. TKT, the story of TKT, teacher knowledge, test of teacher knowledge. And this one, the practice is much broader, okay? And also Learning Teaching, another book called Learning Teaching. So those are the main references for this lecture, and thank you. Thank you. Okay.